What's up, nerds? One of my favorite pastimes is making you feel old. I'm Mike Dangerous, and this is Talking Shots. You know what I love? Shit that I don't need, and paying monthly for it. That's why you can get our monthly loot crate. Just kidding, we don't have. Support your local landfills. Is lit. Once upon a time, kids, you couldn't get your gaming news right at your fingertips. You couldn't just go to 4chan for your sweet, sweet Nintendo leaks. If you wanted to know what was going on in the gaming industry, you had to get yourself one of these. These were the be-all, end-all for the longest time in the gaming industry. You wanted to know what games are coming out? You got a gaming magazine. You wanted to know about Sega's millionth add-on for the Sega Genesis? You got a gaming magazine. Man, I just spent $200 on a Sega 32X. What do you mean they're releasing the Sega Saturn like next month? It definitely was a more innocent time. One of the first popular gaming magazines was GamePro, which released in late 1988. Founded by Patrick Farrell, his sister-in-law Leanne McDermott, and the husband and wife design team of Michael and Lynn Cavish. GamePro was literally an in-house operation being done in their homes until they finally got an office in late 1989. You see, this one had charm. GamePro was one of the first publications to review games with a numbering system. Okay, so, quick history lesson. If there's anything your boy loves, it's mid-80s economics. You see, prior to 1983, if you knew anything about programming, you were making games. The market went insane over them. It was the fad of the late 70s and early 80s. You see, when you think about gaming before Nintendo, normally you would think Atari. But in reality, everybody and their mother was making video games. And when everybody's doing it, you get a lot of, shit. There was literally no quality control in those days because fuck it, kids will buy anything, right? Of course, this led to the infamous video game crash of 1983. And it wasn't until 1985 and Nintendo's Nintendo Entertainment System that we got the Nintendo Seal of Quality. Basically meaning that Nintendo themselves would vet each game of quality before it can release on their system. Except, not really. James Rolfe has an entire career based on that lie. By quality, I mean the games worked. Don't get me wrong, there were many amazing games on the original Nintendo. But not all of them were bangers. This is where gaming journalism became very useful, and GamePro was the first to report directly to the consumer what games were worth buying. They even had like little comic face boys to accompany the numbers. It was cute. GamePro is also where the term pro tip comes from. The more you know. Again, there was no YouTube where you could watch your speedruns of Super Mario Sunshine. Back then, if you wanted to get good at a game, you either A, had to spend hours and hours and hours playing it, B, talk to a friend who also had the game, or C, get yourself a subscription to GamePro. GamePro even had a brief stint on TV, and this was before G4 had shows like X-Play and Cops reruns. GamePro released their last issue in 2011, and all of us senior citizens shed a single tear. GamePro was no more, but not all magazines shared that terrible fate. Electronic Gaming Monthly, or EGM, launched that same year and was more of the same, but to a much larger scale. EGM even had a spin-off magazine called EGM Squared, which was basically for those dirty cheaters out there. This one primarily focused on cheats and tricks. Again, something you would have only really heard through word of mouth. Gaming magazines were definitely like this exclusive club. Like all the cool kids had subscriptions to gaming magazines. And clearly, I'm a cool kid. You'd find some crazy secret in a game and then go to school the next day and then tell all your friends about what you found and get all that sweet mid-90s little boy clout. Or little girl clout, you know, whichever. EGM is still around today, and while not printing magazines for obvious reasons, they still exist, and existing is pretty cool. The beast of gaming magazines was Nintendo Power. You all knew this one was coming. Nintendo Power served one purpose and one purpose alone, and that was to feed the sweet Nintendo propaganda machine. And I mean Nintendo Power went in. Aside from giving themselves positive reviews on Nintendo games, they also went in with the tips and tricks. It also had original comics based off Mario, Zelda, Metroid, Star Fox, you name it. Some of them were even canon. Nintendo was definitely a way of life for so many little kids in the mid-90s, and I'm sure Nintendo Power started so many arguments between kids at the lunch table. And then there's the TurboGrafx kid, talking about his copy of Slaughterhouse. You know, that's the same kid that brings a George Foreman girl to school. The one we all made fun of, but the one that clearly has his shit figured out. God, I really want to be that kid. If you were a Neo Geo kid, you were just rich. Nintendo Power had many iterations over the years, with varying involvement from Nintendo. Today, it's a podcast you can watch on the Nintendo Switch. Makes sense to me. However, if you were a more mature individual with some disposable income, chances are you didn't mess around with home consoles. Stuff is child's play. You probably did most of your gaming on a PC, and probably had a subscription to PC Magazine. This one was definitely aimed at adults. A lot of tech talk, a lot of talks about sound cards and graphics cards. This one definitely wasn't for baby Kyle. PC Mag is still around, but it's broadened its horizons a bit, becoming more of an overall tech news outlet. Now they discuss everything from the new Series Xbox to new smartphones. Chances are your new adult friend Kyle will share articles from PC Mag to his Facebook page, followed by a picture of his '09 Camaro with the dent in the fender and his cheap aftermarket wheels. Fuck you, Kyle. One that I remember fondly, however, was Game Informer. For me, Game Informer definitely felt like more of an adult magazine. Not that kind of magazine, you silly goose! This one definitely started to feel like it treated gaming as an industry instead of just some child's toy.
Get the fuck out of my room! I'm playing Minecraft!
This one was also written by some snarky motherfuckers. Self-awareness in magazines is nothing new, but there was definitely some extra sass with this one. Like in this one, where they respond to some of the criticism they received on their less than favorable review of Shadow the Hedgehog. Their response is as follows. We were surprised to learn that even the most generic and pathetic characters can have a zealous, though misguided, fan following. We call it the Freddie Prinze Jr. effect. Based on the rational and level-headed discourse above, we hereby amend our Shadow the Hedgehog review as follows. The sentence that previously read, if you want to be mature, edgy, having a robot bee character named Charmy is probably a bad idea. You should now read, if you want to be mature and edgy, having an insipid bee character named Charmy is probably a bad idea. No other changes will be required. Man, Game Informer, take no.
Okay.
This sort of opinionated approach to gaming journalism was nothing new, but it was in a much larger place then than it was 20 years prior. With the advent of video streaming sites like Game Trailers and Screwattacks, there was almost a market around video game commentary. Today, the gaming commentary and Let's Play scene is almost an industry in and of itself. It was probably a matter of time, given how interactive games are inherently. People want to talk about their experiences, because no two people will experience a video game in the same way. I don't think gaming magazines necessarily paved the way for the current gaming landscape. Even without these publications, you would probably still have your AVGNs and your Twitch streamers, but it's always fun to look back and see where everything started. I also like hoarding shit that I don't need, hence why I love video game magazines. So what do you think? What are some of your favorite gaming magazines growing up? Or did you even read them? Are you too young to even remember gaming magazines? I got particularly emotional looking back through some of the Game Informer issues that I have right around 2005, 2006. It was such an exciting time, especially when Twilight Princess was coming out. It was a time, man. It was a time to be alive. As always, we love hearing from you. So don't forget to tell us what you think in the comments down below. Hit us up on Reddit. Follow me on Twitter and our Facebook group. If you like what we do, you can always support us on Patreon. Throw us a couple bucks a month. You can get a sweater. Sweaters are cool. I think you can also get like a mug. It's probably on there. As always, don't forget to like, comment, favorite, and subscribe. I'm your boy Mike Dangerous, and this was Talking Shots.